Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will be presenting the ethical issues and solutions found for the Luckin Coffee. I'm Ling, and my group members are Qian Qian, Ariel, Grace, Brian, and Livana. Here are some company backgrounds. Luckin is founded in 2017 and is a coffee retailer in China. It is known for its app-based purchasing system and affordable coffee. The first ethical issue will be deliberate misrepresentations of financial information. During 2019, they were found falsified financial statements about 310 million in sales, which misled everyone about the company's financial health. Under ethical perspective, the financial honesties and transparencies are the fundamental to ethical business practices. Misleading financial reports will lose trust in the company, market, and investors. Furthermore, there are some concepts to take into consideration. It will be from utilitarian point of view, Luckin decision did more harm than benefit. The negative outcomes far outweigh the financial profits the company have. Next, principle-based acting. Actions should be based on principle over the outcomes. Luckin actions will be considered wrong regardless of any benefits to the company. Lastly, virtue ethics. The unethical actions taken by Luckin leaderships reveals as a lack of moral character. Lastly, we have analysis of moral reasoning behind decision. Luckin actions is to maximize stock value and attracts investment with the influence of competitive market. The fast financial gain was motivated by self-interest and short-term thinking. Hence, it leads to significant ethical lapse. Now, I'll move on to the solutions that will be enhanced internal auditing and financial controls. Firstly, strengthening internal controls which establish clear financial procedures, job segmentations, and routine reconciliations procedures to avoid such occurrence. Next, independent external audits. Regular audits, independent third parties objectively evaluate a company's financial health. Followed by empower board of directors to oversee management practices, especially in high-risk areas. Next, continuous employee training. Employees can disclose misconduct without worrying with a safe and anonymous whistleblower process in place, which promotes accountability and openness. Lastly, transparent communications with stakeholders are the honest and clear reporting fosters a trust and long-term relationship with the investor, customers, and employees. Now I'll pass the time to Grace.
Another key ethical issue that our group had identified would be the deception of investors. The accountants in Luckin had breached their fiduciary duties as they misrepresented the company's financial statements by inflating the revenue and growth figures. By doing so, they violated the principle of integrity as they misled investors into thinking that Luckin was profitable enough for them to invest in. The auditors also breached their fiduciary duties as they continued to issue a letter to the investment banks which stated that Luckin had no financial irregularities although they were aware of the fraud. This was probably due to EY prioritizing their self-interest over the interest of the public, as they did not want to lose the revenue-making opportunity with Luckin, which also created a conflict of interest. By doing so, the auditors failed to exercise due care and also failed to provide the professional competence services that the investors ought to receive. By helping Luckin in the fraud, they also did not uphold professional behavior. The unethical acts of the accountants and auditors had caused investors to suffer significant financial losses after the fraud was uncovered. Their unethical acts also breach the trust of investors as well as the trust of potential investors, which is a critical issue in accounting and finance. To address this key ethical issue, we have come up with 3 strategies that financial institutions and regulatory bodies can implement. Firstly, they can organize courses or workshops for investors with topics ranging from understanding key financial ratios to understanding audit reports, which are useful in teaching investors how to identify potential financial risks. Secondly, they can provide educational materials in both digital and physical formats to educate investors the common fraud tactics that companies employ, and one of the common fraud tactics is the manipulation of key accounts. Lastly, they can teach investors how to perform due diligence, which include the research of the management's background and the industry's health, as well as doing a peer comparison. They can teach those knowledge to investors by using the same methods of delivery as mentioned in the previous 2 examples. With investor education and due diligence, it will help to reduce or prevent such fraud from happening again, as investors will more likely become more knowledgeable in accounting, finance and audit that will help them be more alert to potential red flags after they carefully study the company's information from the financial statements and audit reports before deciding whether to invest in those companies. Now I'm going to pass over the time to Ryan.
So for the third ethical issue that we identified, it will be the corporate governance failures. So we actually split this into 2 separate departments, the senior management and the audit committee. So for the senior management, the former chairman and then CEO, they actually did not possess the strong internal monitoring needed to produce accurate financial statements and transactions. So several managers and staff of Larkin actually knew of the practices and false accounting. The senior management were also well aware of the erroneous statements and transactions that they were making and yet continued to do so. This proves that there was a weak corporate governance amongst the senior management due to the lack of integrity they had. Moving on to the audit committee, they were unable to investigate the fabricated financial statements. They did not only overlook the anomalous transactions, but they also participated in fabricating the company's numbers in the financial statements. So this shows that even though that they knew that they were participating in a fraud scheme, they still went ahead and approved the financial statements which were fabricated. So what Larkin actually did was they came up with a few solutions to strengthen corporate governance and accountability. So firstly, they dismissed both their chairman and CEO, CEO and CEO. They dismissed both their former CEO and COO respectively. They removed employees who knew or had participated in the fraud. And then in 2022, Larkin announced corporate governance changes where the board of directors voted to introduce a 2-year term on every subsequent director. And then in the same year, they implemented a corporate governance report where they introduced its core values, reshaping its corporate governance structure, coming up with a crisis management structure, and many more. So to evaluate their solutions, Larkin established a strong corporate governance in the company so that they would not repeat the mistake that they made in 2020, as well as ensuring that moving forward, any fraudulent activities will not be tolerated. So the solutions that Larkin came up with to strengthen their corporate governance actually plays a huge part in building and maintaining corporate culture in the company even to this day. So I'll pass the time over to Liliana.
Thank you, Ryan. So moving on to the 4th ethical issue will be the ethical issue of the fraud in relation to the impact it has on the employees. So through this case study, you can see that the Larkin Coffee's high-ranking officials who are involved in the accounting fraud, they have failed to show ethical leadership, where they have ignored to be concerned about the welfare of their employees, as well as abusing their authority to pressurize their employees to commit the fraud with them. And together, they have shown characteristics such as dishonesty as well as a lack of credibility, which are fundamental principles of ethical leadership. Moreover, because leaders are expected to be the role model within the organization, setting up the tone at the top about what actions or behaviors that are considered as acceptable and ethical. However, in this case, the leaders have actually encouraged their employees to commit fraud, something that is illegal, which focusing on maximizing the company's profit and performance regardless of any other issues. So while they may have argued using the ethical framework of utilitarianism, where they are trying to achieve the best outcome, however, this is an unsustainable approach in this case because it's something that is illegal and was proven to be exposed in the end. And they're also neglecting the triple bottom line, where the leaders are ignoring the welfare of their employees for pressurizing them into doing what they might not want to do. And so after the exposing, the company has responded in several actions, where firstly they have amended their code of business conduct and ethics in 2023. So they have engaged in this compliance-based culture where the employees and their high-ranking officials are expected to strictly follow the rules that are written inside the codes, as well as a restructuring of their board of directors to improve the oversight and ensure that ethical practices are included in their decision-making processes. This has shown their effort to align themselves with the social web model of CSR, where the company is integrating its business operations with the societal well-being instead of just merely focusing on the profit-making sides. So they are also have shown themselves to be reflecting more of the triple bottom line in their operation, where they are focusing on the welfare of their employees besides profit making. So now I'll pass my time to Ariel.
Okay, thank you, Liviana. Our fifth ethical solution is Luckin having unrealistic growth targets. And Luckin was initially established in China and meant to replace Starbucks in the coffee scene there. And because of this, Luckin employed really aggressive expansion strategies. Like within only 2 years, they opened over 4,500 stores. And a lot of capital was required to maintain these stores. And in addition, they wanted to fund more expansion projects. And because of this pressure to perform and expand, it kind of nurtured a very unethical corporate culture within Luckin, where they prioritize investments over ethical practices. There's also a compliance-based culture because the CEO was found to have fabricated the financial statements, and the senior management had complied under the CEO's behavior to similarly falsify their financial statements and make Luckin seem more attractive to investors. So a solution to this is to establish more realistic growth targets. And instead of the 250% of revenue growth that they achieved in only 1 year, their revenue should be targeted to grow only about 10 to 25% per year. And because there will then be less focus on results, there will be less pressure on employees to perform, and so they will not resort to unethical behavior to drive like Luckin's brand image among investors. Another way is we suggested that they improve their mobile app through qualitative improvements instead of focusing only on revenue growth. Like they can improve the accessibility or have promotions or customer feedback through the app to encourage customer engagement and such. So another thing that Luckin did was that they established their presence in the lower tier cities instead of competing in big cities with like Starbucks and global competitors. So having an established presence in the lower tier cities, meaning that their competitors were a little bit smaller and it was more manageable for them to kind of make Luckin's brand image more outstanding compared to competing with a global superpower right off the bat. I'll now be passing my time over to Tian Tian.
So Luckin scandal did not only just harm its reputations, but also the overall trust in Chinese companies, especially those listed on US exchanges. In pursuit of short-term gains, Luckin's leader breached their duties to investors, compromising the collective good and ignoring the broader harm. This scandal has resulted in heightened scrutiny of other Chinese firms, with investors now being more cautious, especially towards firms in the technology and consumer sectors. They are also demanding more transparency and closely examining the financial reports provided by the Chinese firms. From a utilitarian perspective, although Luckin benefited temporarily, the long-term consequences caused significant harm, affecting the broader market's trust in Chinese companies and failing to maximize overall good for the greatest number of stakeholders. So to address this issue, the Chinese Security Regulatory Commission, or CSRC, has taken steps to enhance the transparency through higher disclosure requirements. They introduced new rules requiring auditors to conduct more thorough and independent audits and to report any irregularities immediately. This helped to reduce misconduct and rebuild investors' confidence in the Chinese market. However, these measures have limitations. They rely heavily on the independence and integrity of auditors and may not prevent all forms of potential misconduct. To further strengthen these regulations, we suggest that the CSRC should also require companies to use internationally recognized auditing firms, which are more reliable or requires for even more frequent disclosures. This will help investors to detect inconsistencies faster and build trust. Besides that, CSRC also introduced stricter penalties to serve as stronger deterrent. Fines for dishonest disclosures were significantly increased from 600,000 yuan to 10 million yuan, and prison terms from violations were extended from 3 to 10 years. These measures highlight the importance of financial transparency for the companies, thus encouraging any misconduct practices. However, higher fines and longer prison sentences alone may not be sufficient, especially for companies with deeply ingrained unethical cultures or complex unethical cases. Inconsistent monitoring may also weaken the deterrent effect over time. Therefore, additional steps should be taken, and our group suggests that the authority should also conduct regular reviews on high-risk funds, implement automated monitoring systems to flag inconsistencies to detect unethical behaviors earlier, and apply reduced penalties that increase in severity for repeated offences. But most importantly, the authority should prioritize promoting ethical leadership within the organization to complement these penalties and hence fostering a culture of integrity and transparency. Okay, now I'll pass the time to Ariel.
Okay, thank you, Tian Tian. So another solution our group came up with was enhancing the whistleblowing protection schemes that Luckin had. Actually, as it is, Luckin's whistleblowing protection scheme is pretty strong because the only reason why they found out about this accounting scandal was because of an anonymous whistleblower that tipped off the authorities. But so how to improve? What our group suggested was to have better reporting mechanisms, such as coming up with an anonymous hotline or whistleblowing channel where internal whistleblowers have better access to these channels where they can report any misdoing by their company.